Hello folks, I'm about to do some painting with lovely chat here who are live on YouTube, on the Northern Exile channel, but we are here for some 40k rantage, as we do every Tuesday and Thursday. We talk about things going on in the Warhammer 40,000 universe and beyond, maybe even in general wargaming, and we have a little chuckle about it and maybe come up with some points on maybe how the whole hobby can, get better. Our current course today for this beautiful meal of daring do is going to be balance is not needed in Warhammer 40,000. Now this is something that I've said for a long time. First we need to go into what balance is. A general balanced game to me, and I think to basically everybody, is a game where not one faction has complete remit to lord over all of the others. We have a game that is relatively balanced, a game that is you can pick up any army and play and get certain amounts of success with. You're not winning the battle simply by choosing an army at the start of the game, and God knows we've had Warhammer 40,000 editions where that has been the case, right? Tau in certain editions, Eldar in certain editions, even Leagues of Votann in 9th for a little while were that kind of a way, where you would pick the army and invariably you would win most games. The balance of Games Workshop that they want to hit is somewhere around every single force, every single army winning around 45% of their games. And that's pretty cool. That's fine as far as I'm concerned. But at the end of the day, I think balance is a bit overrated, at least for me. It's not really something that I want to get myself behind, because if everything is balanced, everything is grey, in my opinion. If everybody has the same amount of stratagems and rules and special rules, it generally takes away from the artistry of what 40k is and the randomness of what 40k is. I think Games Workshop's rampant, aggressive pursuit of balance has been basically to placate the tournament crowd. And the tournament crowd have a place here. I've said it time and time again. Tournaments are amazing and they're a really good place to go and have your fun. But they're not the whole hobby. In fact, I would say most people playing this hobby are not tournament players. And so Games Workshop are catering to what? 10-20% of the fan base, where the rest of us are sitting here scratching our heads, wondering why we have so many stratagems to remember. So, let's jump into the chat and see how many people are disagreeing with me, what kind of points they want to make, and things like that. So Piotr says, I can live without balance, but too many games of modern 40k feel as if I have no agency. So, you have a White Scars army, lost game turn 1. Yeah, I mean, what you're pointing at there, Piotr, is a lack of balance in current 40k, which is a game based on balance. That's inexcusable. If Games Workshop are going to make a game based solely on balance, like we want balance, we want like this really nicely balanced game to be an awesome thing for everybody to partake in, that's fine by me. But at the very same time, you have to be very careful, because if you start to wind back that balance with certain factions, or if certain factions are left behind by Codex creep, or they don't even get a Codex, White Scars, hello, right? You can really see a lot of embittered players, and that's very true. Some dude says, what if the armies are balanced, but the players aren't, and that's what makes the game good? Now, I'd like for you to expand on that point, some dude. I think I know what you mean. Do you mean that, we have certain bad and good players, and so the tournament scene is fine, and that's what we should be doing? Because that's a valid point, if that's the case, the armies in 40k right now, by and large, I'm sorry, I need to say this, they are balanced. By and large, I'm sorry, White Scars fans, there are certain armies that aren't very good, I know. But there are a lot that are. Like, in terms of the win percentages at tournaments, nearly everybody in 40k in 10th edition is within that, 45% win range, which Games Workshop want, which they say is the sweet spot for having balance, right? So 10th edition right now is a balanced game. I'm not here to make the argument that it isn't, because it is. Quite frankly, it just is. But is that a good thing? That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. Karimu says, not if it makes my book outdated after day 1. Yeah, balance is not needed in Warhammer 40,000. Yeah, it isn't needed if my book is already outdated after day 1. That is a huge thing, man. That is a huge thing. It happens all the time. Games Workshop bring out a nice codex for everyone to get to partake in, and you go and you get your codex from Games Workshop. You're made up. You're really happy, and you get it home. You play one game with it if you're lucky, because you've got to learn your codex first before you game with it, right? You play one game with it, and then they update it with an FAQ, and because it was too powerful, you now don't have an army, basically. It's been nerfed to held them back, and that's what you're doing. That is an extreme example, but it has happened. Hello, Leagues of Votann players. It has happened in the past. Hello, Imperial Guard players, right, from 8th edition, when all that was going on, right? It has happened in the past, and it will, again, happen in the future. So yeah, I'm totally with you there. It can be extremely annoying. So maybe balance isn't needed, if that's what would, a game without balance has one release of rules. Let's be honest, right? Every codex is the codex, and that's it. You know, there are no FAQs in a game without balance. Entropic Tyranny says, when I was 13 years old, I played 40k 2nd edition. I would play with my friends, and we all had Space Marines, and it was a lot of fun. Then I played a game in a Warhammer shop and played against Dark Eldar. Okay. They shot me off the board before I could fire a single shot. It wasn't fun, and it made me hate 40k, so I went back to Lord of the Rings. With balance, that wouldn't have happened. Okay. I didn't come back until 9th. Okay. I'm gonna say this, right? I think that happens... I think that happens regardless, right? Like, I think that that addition of 40k you're talking about, I think even with balance, that happens. Right? I think even with balance, as we see now, you might have come up against a really bad opponent, you might have come up against a really strong opponent that also counters your army with their army choice, you know? I think even a balanced game, there are ways where that story definitely happens. Even if your game is totally balanced. So I get what you're saying, but I don't quite stick the argument there. I don't quite, I don't quite go along with that argument and the reasoning there. But I get what you're saying, completely. I get what you're saying. We have Piotr back. He says, also rules out force homogenization. You need chaff. You need uppy-downy. Factions are technically different, but somehow they all feel the same. Again, in a game which is totally focused on utter balance, that is what we're going to get. As a Grey Knight player, I can tell you now, I have friends who play Eldar, and our armies are eerily similar. Eerily similar. They're better at Psyker stuff than I am, and I've got more power armor than they do. But aside from that, we're very similar. We're teleporting around, we're doing copious amounts of magic against our enemies, we're laying down firepower, and we're so low on numbers or on chaff units that we're pinpoint striking across the board trying to get wins that way. We're very similar, and we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be. It is what it is. The Grey Knights and Eldar should not play similarly at all. But that's just how it is. The J Vlog says, agreed, there should be no balance. Like a game of rock, paper and scissors. Each faction, etc. should have a strong point and weaknesses, as with everything. It is how the player plays the game. You hit the nail on the head there, J Vlog. That is the video in a nutshell. That is what I'm saying. We don't need balance, right? We don't. We need every single faction in Warhammer 40,000 to be unbalanced in their own way, right? So, for instance, Grey Knights should be ridiculously good at taking down models with multiple wounds. They should be ridiculously good at churning through armor and doing psychic spells. But that's it. Everything else, you should be able to make, absolutely, you should be able to make your Grey Knight list be very teleporty, right? You should be able to do that, absolutely. But, it should have a certain playstyle and a certain... Death Guard, for instance. Death Guard just straight up should not be able to teleport. They should be made to slog across the field. But they are really good at taking hits and tanking them. They're really good at laying down firepower and plague cannons and plague weapons and things. They're really good at debuffing their enemies' morale. That's what they should be good at, right? Everything else they should kind of suck at. They shouldn't be good at zooming across the battlefield. They shouldn't be able to teleport in at all. Right? They should just be coming down and trudging across the battlefield. There are certain ways where you can make an unbalanced game fun, and it also makes your choice of faction really, really, really important. Nowadays, if you could select one If you select one Space Marine chapter, it doesn't matter. You can select any of them, right? If you select Eldar, it doesn't matter. You can select another Xenos race. They might play in exactly the same way. You don't know. You can make them play in exactly the same way. A talented player can out-psych Eldar with a non-Eldar army. Easily. Absolutely easily, right? What I'm proposing here is that if you select Eldar, you have a marked advantage in Psyker powers. A marked against everybody but the best, as in Thousand Suns, Tzeentch people, maybe Grey Knights can stand up to you a little bit, but not really, you know what I mean? That's what I'm going for here. That's the kind of game I'm going for. Joseph says, I like the ease of being able to learn the game, and that comes before balance. Yeah, I agree. Sam says, balance is a tricky needle to thread. Whilst I agree, balance makes the game sterile, but at the same time, I don't want Timmy to get upset because he brought his melee blown away by Spike's leaf blower. Yeah, I mean, again, what you're saying there, though, Sam, is something beyond the control of balance. That's players being arseholes. Players are always going to be arseholes, and you can't control that with how balanced your game is, You just can't. So, it is what it is. Wombat Combat says, I believe there should be fun and random rules, like the roll table for Chaos back. Dude, that is such a good point. That is such a good point. We don't see those tables anymore because almost every aspect of role-playing has been taken out of 40k. Like the original, Warhammer, things like that, they had 1 foot in role-playing, 1 foot in wargaming, right? And Rick Priestley have said this a load of times. Eventually, the role-playing aspect went away from the game, and everything else sort of stayed, which is a war game now. But I remember those boon tables in the Chaos Codex. The Chaos Codex was worth its entrance fee on that table alone. It was so fun. It was so fun, and you loved playing against Chaos because you knew it was going to happen, and it was random, and it was completely unbalanced, and you didn't know what you were going to get. You could have an aspiring champion turn into a Bloodthirster of Khorne, or you could have an aspiring champion turn into a fucking Chaos Spawn, or nothing. I remember the Jaquero weaponsmiths in the old Demon Hunters Codex, or Ordo Malleus, things like that. Those were brilliant. The Demon Hunters Codexes were awesome, and the old Grey Knight Codexes were good too. Basically, if you didn't know what a Jaquero weaponsmith is, he is essentially an orangutan. He's an orangutan, right? But he is very, very, very good. He doesn't talk, but he is very, very, very good at fixing things. But he's also an orangutan. So basically, as a Grey Knight, you could give your weapon to this Jaquero weaponsmith. And he would then say, okay, roll on the table. You could roll on the table. Now, he could give your weapon, say your bolter could have, AP 5 now and strength 8. On a bolter, which is amazing in 7th edition and before, right? 6th edition, that's an amazing gun, right? He could give you that. Or, he could just lick it and give it back to you. And nothing happens. He just, gets some excrement, rubs it on the barrel. There you go. Doesn't change anything, right? So, that kind of randomness, that kind of fun is pulled away from 40k. The more balanced we make it, the more serious we take it. Now, should there be serious moments? Should we be having the moments where, the last stand of the Space Marines? Of course we should. Absolutely. I'm not saying that shouldn't be the case. But there should be cinematic moments in games. The more you have rerolls, the more you have balance, quote unquote, the less cinematic your games become, and the less fun your games become, in my opinion. Yeah, brilliant point, Wombat. Well done. Sam says, it's the collective nerfing that bothers me. Look at how the start of 10th Eldari were abusing the devastating wounds. Yes. Steady says, blatant balance is boring, but an ingenious game design will give the illusion of imbalance with strengths and weaknesses. But the result, after the dust settles, should be balanced. That is a really good point. And that is something that I really wish Games Workshop would take from video games. They've taken all of the bad lessons from video games and implemented them into 40k, like patching the game later, releasing it broken and patching it later, shit like that. We don't want that in the hobby, but stuff like this, really cool game design that seems really wow, that's really overpowered, but then when you're actually playing the game, you're like, oh, hang on, it is overpowered, but that guy also has this that I have to watch out for, and that's also really overpowered that he does. How am I going to work my way around this, right? You become more tactically more tactically adept at avoiding your... listen, All warfare is based on this. It's Sun Tzu, right? Avoid your enemy where they're strong and hit your enemy where they're weakest. It's really hard to do that in a game that's balanced, so everybody has an equal chance all of the time in all circumstances. You just can't do it, right? But in a game that's imbalanced, but everybody's imbalanced, every army now has clear strengths and weaknesses. So if you're a good general and you see your opponent, you go, okay, Tyranids, I know they're going to have big monsters and swarms. What do I do? Okay, this is what I'm going to do, right? To kind of counteract that. Okay, but then you have to look at what kind of army did he bring? Is the Tyranid player bringing mostly swarms? Or is he bringing mostly monsters? Or is he bringing zoanthropes to combat your psychers? That you will then go accordingly and say, okay, what is going on here? What am I doing? How am I going to combat this? That's when the tactics start to come in to your war game. That's brilliant. That's what we want. King Quinna says, balance is okay, but not if it destroys the rock, paper, scissors aspect of the armies. In my honest opinion, balance ruins the unique properties of each faction. I agree. Mining Bat says, I kind of think that Warhammer, Games Workshop and the community are living in the past. Codexes are cool, but they should no longer contain rules, or their included rules shouldn't be something you buy codexes for. Now, I've said this before on the channel. I think Mining Bat is a veteran of the channel, and he knows how I think. And he's also brought that up because he knows I'll probably jump off on it now, which I'm going to. Yes, I honestly do think that codexes right now don't work as they should. I don't think Games Workshop should be releasing rules in their codexes, please hear me out. Codexes should be a repository of lore and artwork and how to paint your armies. They should be a fun book where you explore all the things that your army is all about, right? And yes, your rules can be in there, absolutely. But it should be a proviso of these rules will change because we're going to do an FAQ, probably, right? But you get free rules online anyway that are always updated, so no problem there, right? That is my opinion. They should be bespoke products that you spend £30 odd on because you want that book for your faction for this edition on your bookshelf. Because you'll read it for years and years and years to come, because it's packed with short stories, it's packed with lore tidbits, with really good tips on how to play your army, with really good tips on you know, how to build and paint your army, conversions you can do, missions you can go on, all of these different things that used to be in Warhammer 40k rulebooks that are now no longer there because they're fucking obsessed with balance. That's what codexes should be, in my opinion. Minding Bat says, okay, he's already said that. Starscream says, hello North, hello Starscream. Mining Bat also says, the rules should be found in one place where they are immediately updated and easy to access. I'm not even against paying for them, like a subscription. Neither am I. I think if you paid £5 a month and you got every piece of Warhammer 40k rules for free on an app, not for free, but behind that paywall on the app, I'd pay for that. I'd definitely pay for that. If also you're getting, like, you know, animations, and you're getting battle reports, exclusive interviews with the studio, you're getting behind the scenes content, and you're getting all of your rules for that £5 a month, dude, I'd buy that in a second. Even £10 a month, I'd get that in a second. Cash's Coolness says, do you think the hobby is still able to be played by teens like me, or has it moved on to a more older audience? No, mate, I think it's definitely able to be played by teens like you. In fact, I think the more we go towards balance, the more it will move away from people like you. Do you know what I mean? Because you now have a prescribed list that you need to take to do quite well with, which kind of sucks, which I don't like, but there we are. But at the same time, I think if we move this towards a more, shall we say, unbalanced place, right? If we do that, move it towards a bit more of an unbalanced. Here, Steady is getting his time in the sun here because he's now on the screen. But if we move it to a more unbalanced place where every army has its own thing, if you're a new guy, let's say if you're a teenager or you're somebody new coming into the hobby, it's much easier for a Games Workshop staffer when you walk into that store to go, hey man, what do you want to play? Like, how do you want to play 40k? Oh, I want to get into close combat. Awesome. Well, there are these armies here that do that. There's World Eaters, there's Orcs, there's Blood Angels, there's Grey Knights, what are you into? He goes, oh, I really like the idea of like being this really angry dude and being big and muscly. Do you like orcs? I love the look of the orcs. Then now you're collecting orcs, right? It's that simple. If you have an unbalanced game that your factions are really leaning into certain aspects of who they are, it's much easier to recommend them to new players, and it's much easier for those players to actually sit down and really get engrossed in what's going on. You know what I mean? So that is where I am with that. I don't think we need balance in Warhammer 40,000. I think, if anything, we need unbalance, right? I honestly think there should be multiple versions of 40k per edition. We should have tournament-based rules, which are very balance-heavy, balance-focused, but there should be the core rules of 40k, which are not balanced. They're for beers and pretzels, dudes like myself, to get with their blokes around a table and with some beers and have a good time, right? Right now, that is one-page rules. One-page rules gets that, and that is what it is. One-page rules is as complicated as you want to make it, and even then, it's not that complicated, right? Everybody can play it. And everybody in one-page rules is unbalanced as fuck. Like, everybody is broken at a certain thing, which I love, right? That's how 40k should go, and if they did that in 11th edition, you would get me back in a heartbeat. But this would be a very brave thing for them to do, so I think they're going to stick to what 10th edition did. I honestly think Games Workshop are kind of happy with how 10th edition is, in how the balance is and how things are going on. So, you know, I don't think it's ever going to change, but I myself would prefer it to be a bit less balanced and a bit more fun. Anyway, I love you a long time. Say goodbye, chat, to the recording, and we'll see you very, very, very soon. Have a good one. Bye now.